Hi everybody, and thank you so much for joining my session today. Before I get started, I just want to say a big thanks for DynamicsCon for having me again this year to present on my topic, the Dynamics 365, some of them new features that you might not know about. So thank you guys so much for having me. Before I get started, I wanted to go ahead and introduce myself real quick. My name is Dian Taylor. I work for RSM as a business apps director focused on pre-sales, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's that big QR code that you see on the screen. Or take a look at my website at d365goddess.com. I'm trying to do one article a week and one YouTube video a week as well. So make sure that you take a look at that as well, or follow me on Twitter as well. So let's go ahead and dive in and get started. Some of the things that I'm going to be discussing today, as you can see here on the agenda, is we're going to talk about the new column editor. Not sure if you guys have seen that yet or have used it yet, but I'm going to talk about that guy. And then also the new Power Apps Designer. In the Power Apps Designer, we can also configure collapsible groups. So I'm going to dive into that as well and show you how you can do that and what that looks like. Then we're going to go into another preview feature, which is the ribbon configurations that we can now do inside of Dynamics 365. We'll talk about the Microsoft Team collaboration, which is also in preview. The Deal Manager Workspace, which is also in preview today, but it's a great tool that we can start utilizing already. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some customer service features that you might not be using today, some field service features, and I'm going to close with model-driven in-app notifications, which is also today in preview. So let's get started. So today, when you open a view in Dynamics 365, you might see this new column that's going to allow us to do in-view modifications. And what this means is that we can actually click on this little icon that you'll see sitting on top of that view, and then you can add columns to that view. You can also change the query, right? Like we used to do an advanced find. We can now do that directly here in this column editor. Then lastly, you can also go ahead and actually save that view that you created by using that column editor. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some of the things that we can do here. Besides adding these columns, obviously we can also move them side to side, right? So if you have a column on the right side that you want to move to the left side, or maybe you want to get rid of it altogether, you can do that using this new column editor in Dynamics 365. So it's very similar to me as Advanced Find, because again, you can do some of the same things that we can do in Advanced Find, but we cannot change the table, right? It's really dependent on the table that you're working on. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to pull up my environments here to kind of show you what that looks like. So you're going to see this new icon over here, right? This is that column options, as they call it. You can see that when I kind of hover over that. And when you click on that, you can see these are all of the columns that are currently in this view, this active contacts view. So if I want to move some of this stuff around, you can see I can just drag this over, just very easy to do. Then I can just go ahead and add some columns as well. So let's take a look here. We have email address already. So let's do birthday. And you can also, as you can see, search for these columns as well. So if I'm saying street, address street 1, I want to add that. And once you have picked your columns, you're done with your columns. And again, you can even pick some related columns as well directly from here, right? So for example, if I want to put some of this contact information on here, I could do that as well. But when you're done, you're going to click close right over here, and then you're going to hit apply. And you can see now that I added that column, that birthday column, and that address street 1 column as well. If I wanted to filter this view, I can do that here by hitting this little icon over here that will open my filtering panel. And this is where I'm going to be able to put my query in, right? So for example, if I wanted to look for contacts where the email address actually contains data, and you can see here, right, we can also add related entities to filter on. So maybe we want to say the account needs to be, I actually have an account type field in here, that needs to be a customer. I can hit apply, and these are my contacts. And then what I can do here, I was a little bit quick with that, so let me again click on the ellipse here. You can see here, create view, and then here you have the option to actually save this view as a new view. So when you do that, it's going to ask you to give it a new name. And once you do that, you can then pull it up here from your view selector in Dynamics 365. All right. So let's move to the next topic here. So there's a new Power Apps Designer currently in preview that's going to make it a lot easier for us to make those configurations for those Power Apps that we have, the model-driven Power Apps that we have in Dynamics 365. Now, keep in mind, this is not a form designer, right? We're not updating and changing forms. This is really the model-driven app designer that's new. Previously, you would go to that front page, right? You would actually select, let me actually pull that up here real quick now that we're talking about it. You would click on the app that you're in, right? This is the legacy. And then the app that you would want to configure, you would basically click here on the little apps or on the little ellipse, and you would click here, open an app designer. So this used to take you to that legacy app designer that's currently still loading. And you can still use that today because, again, this new Power Apps Designer is currently in preview. But this is looking very different from what we're used to, but definitely something that's going to make it, I feel, a lot easier to configure some of our apps using this particular tool. And this is actually, as you can see, for Canvas apps and for model-driven apps. Currently, right, we still have that legacy designer that's for model-driven apps, and then we have a different designer for Canvas apps. So Microsoft is really kind of pulling those two together so you get a similar experience. Now, when we're accessing this app designer, I'll show you that in a second in the demo as well, we can now also configure collapsible groups. And those are really our ability to change some of the navigation items in the sitemap. Now, again, we also have the ability to do that currently in the legacy designer, but what we can do with these guys is we can collapse some of those areas for us to navigate to. Now, some of the configuration options that we have here, we can actually show or hide the home button. We could not do that before, so that's a really nice feature to be able to do that. We can also show or hide the recently accessed records in here as well. Again, something that we couldn't do before. And then we can also go ahead and show or hide the pinned records. Right? So I'll show you that as well. And lastly, we can enable those collapsible groups. Now, unfortunately, it's either you enable this for all of those items on your sitemap or for none of them. So it's not like you can actually choose any of that where you want to enable that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Again, this is that old designer, right, that we're used to. So now let me go and show you where that new designer is. You're going to go here to make.powerapps.com. Obviously, you got to make sure you're in the correct environments. And then you're going to navigate here to apps. And you will go to the app that you actually want to edit, and you will click here on the More Commands button. And then you can see here, I can click edit from here. We don't want to do that because we want to go to that new preview editable section over here. This new, let me give it a second here while this loads. And you will see that this looks very different from what we're used to, right? So Here you can see all of the different tables that are related to this app. And if I click below here, you can see this is navigation. So this is really talking about the navigation here on the side, right? Our sitemap navigation. So I can expand that, right? I can expand that again, right? And when we're talking about these collapsible groups, it's really allowing us to look at these groups here, right? That we see over here, my work, auto capture, customers, etc. And it's going to allow us to set those to be collapsible. So if I click here on navigation bar, this is what I was talking about in that slide, right? We can turn the home, as you see over here, we can turn that off. And you see, as soon as I do that, that completely disappears from my sitemap. So that's how you can do that. Same for the recent items and the pinned items as well. And then obviously, do you want to enable those collapsible groups? You just have to check that box. And this is what that looks like, right? Now you can collapse all of the different areas here inside of Dynamics 365. And again, this is either for everything, all of the groups that you have right on your sitemap, or you just turn this off for everything and you don't get that navigation here. And then lastly, the data tabs, that actually shows all of the data that is stored in this app, right? This is everything we have in the environments, right? Which is this particular environment that we have selected. And if you want to see everything in your app, that's what you see below here. Now, if I go back to pages, this is also where you can add items, right, to the app. You can add a table-based view and a form. You can add a dashboard. And then you can see here, there is a custom page section that you can do here as well. Now, again, keep in mind, guys, this is in preview, right? So this is not live yet. Microsoft is still kind of working out some of the kinks. So definitely keep that in mind as well. All right. So now let's talk about the new command bar. So this is, again, another preview feature, right? Allowing us to add buttons to the command bar. And you're probably going to say, well, what about the existing buttons that live in the application already, right? The default buttons. Well, we currently can't do anything with that. We cannot modify them. But I'm definitely hoping that that's something that's going to come up later. So this configuration, in order to access that command bar editor, you will actually do that from that Power Apps Designer that I just showed you in my previous demo. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to hop right back into the designer. And the way you could do this is you will choose a table, as you can see here on my screen. I'm actually going to go to the account table, and you can click here on the ellipse. And there it is. You can see here the edit command bar, again, also in preview. But this is some stuff that you can kind of start to work with in your sandbox environment to kind of get a little bit of an idea of how this stuff works, right? So I'm going to click here on edit command bar. I'm going to say save and continue. And what it's going to do in a second is actually going to open up that command bar editor for me. So I'm just going to give it a second here while it does that. Now, like I said, keep in mind what I said earlier, right? That current buttons that are in the application, we can't do anything with as of yet. But of course, we still have the ability to use the XML toolbar where we have that ribbon editor that we can utilize for that as well. So it tried to open my pop-up. So let me just go ahead and do that again, because apparently, oh, here we go. And it is now loading my command bar. So what you're seeing here is it's going to ask me, well, which command bar do you want to edit? So I can load that. So you can do from the main grid, from the main form, etc. I'm going to actually choose the main grid, and I'm going to click on edit. And it's now pulling in that command bar. So these are some of those out of the box already existing buttons, right? And you can see here, this is grayed out. I can't do anything with that. But I did create a copy button. I actually wrote an article on this as well, and I did a YouTube video on that as well. I would love to go into the details with you guys on how I built that, but definitely check out my website for that article, or my YouTube channel if you want to learn more about how to do that. But this is basically allowing me to make a copy of an existing account record in Dynamics 365. And the way that this works, you can see that over here, right? It's really using that language that we also see in Power Apps as well. I think it's called Power FX, right? So that's what it's using for us to, you can see that over here, for us to create those formulas and then perform those actions once somebody actually hits that button. And then I wanted to talk about the Microsoft Teams collaboration, which is also in preview. Now, some of these features already existed. I'm sure you guys remember that we currently have access to Microsoft Teams from within Dynamics 365, right? We can create those Teams channels, and then we can link Dynamics 365 records to that, right? You can go into Teams, you can open either a list view, or you can open a record, right, that lives in Dynamics 365, and then you can start working on that. So this is an addition to that, right? This is going to allow us to actually chat inside of Dynamics 365 records with other folks, right? So think about maybe you're a sales rep and you're on an opportunity, or you're on an account record or whatever, and you want to quickly reach out to one of your coworkers, right? Maybe you have a question or something like that. This is where you're going to be able to use this integration. You're also going to be able to actually link some of those chats to those records in Dynamics 365. And Microsoft currently, per today, it's actually set to go GA in March of 2022. So I'm very excited about this. We already have the ability to turn on the preview as well. So if you want to try this out in your sandbox, definitely go ahead and do that so you can kind of see how this works. And obviously, this is available for all Dynamics 365 apps, right? So you can just go ahead and turn that on inside any of your apps, and then you can kind of start playing around with that. Now, obviously, it does need to be enabled, right? You have to turn this on before you can start using it. It's not some of these things that are automatically enabled. Again, this is a preview, right? So you need to go ahead and turn that on. Now, let's take a look. I want to show you a couple of different things. I want to show you, excuse me, where you can turn this on. So you can go here to Sales. You can go to App Settings. And then I have to look here. Oops. You can scroll down. Let me just see here. I think if you go here to Get Started, here you can see this Microsoft Teams collaboration, right? So here you can turn this on. You can click here on Edit Settings, and you can turn that on directly from within here. Now, also the ability to connect records to channels in Microsoft Teams. Again, you can turn that on. That already existed, but you can see that you can access that from within here as well. And then if you click here on Go to Advanced Team Collaboration Settings, that will do exactly that. That will take you to that page where you can set up some other things on here as well, right? This is that chat that I was talking about that you can turn on. And then as you can see over here, you can also use the record title as a default chat name for linked chats. So let's say if you have an opportunity that's called New Opportunity for a Datum Corporation, right? What that means is if you use that title as a default name for that chat, that's what that chat's going to be called, right? That's what it's going to be named. Now, on top of that, here you can see the ability to link chats to Dynamics 365 records. So if there are certain tables that you want to enable this for, this is where you can do that. Right? You can see here we have this available for customer assets, work orders, right? All of this stuff, accounts, cases, opportunities. But if you want to add your own record types to this, you can just go ahead and pick that or search for that. This is actually, my drop-down value is a custom table. So if you want to enable this for custom tables, you can see that you can do that as well. So like I said, all you have to do is just go ahead and pick that particular table, and that is it. And then it will show up here in this list. Now, another thing that I wanted to show you here, if you actually click here on edit, this is going to allow you, look at this. This is something where you can now join the chat, right? Collaborators with the correct permissions can join linked chats. You can turn that on or off here. And then here you can also provide context for your linked chat. So what does that mean? Well, when I start a chat, I'm going to say open opportunities. And I'm going to click into that. Oh, it's not. Here we go. So what is happening if I start a new linked chat? Let's say in this particular case, this is a chat regarding an opportunity. It will pull up the fields that you see here on the screen. So the opportunity that I'm on, it will pull in the opportunity ID, the topic, the potential customer, pipeline phase, and lead source of that opportunity. I don't have to go in there and manually type that in. It will actually pull that in based on the record that this chat is linked to. So that's going to be a very nice feature, right? And giving us really the ability to collaborate even more than we're already used to. Okay. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the Deal Manager. And the Deal Manager is another preview feature that you can try out today. I really love this feature, and it's really a new way to manage opportunities in Dynamics 365. So a lot of people were asking me like, okay, so this workspace, what is that? Is that like a different app or something like that? No, it's not. Other people were asking, is this a dashboard or something like that? It's kind of like a dashboard on steroids almost, but it's allowing us to, right in that workspace, you can change and personalize some of your views, you can update records, you can review the data, you can, as you can see, right, you can make some updates, you can take notes, you can add tasks right inside of that Deal Manager workspace without having to open the records first in Dynamics 365. So this is really going to allow you to do a lot of different things right inside of that workspace without having to leave that workspace. And this is available for Dynamics 365 Sales Enterprise or Premium as well. So let me show you what that looks like. I am going to pull up here. I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back here to sales. And you can see here is my Deal Manager that I have available. I'm just going to give it a second here while this loads. And this is, again, also something that you can turn on or off. But let me just show you what this looks like, right? So you can see here, we have this little chart here in the middle, which allows us to kind of review some of our opportunity data. I can also switch that to a sales funnel, as you can see here. And the little pop-up that you see here is configurable, right? So you can determine which field you want to show on this little pop-up over here. Then you also have some of these smart fields over here as well. So you can see there's not a lot of data in here, obviously, but I'll show you that in a second as well, how you can take a look at that. But first, there are abilities here to turn off what we're seeing here. I currently have a combination of a list view, right? Here's my list of opportunities. And then here is my chart, right? My deal tracker. Now, if I just wanted to see that list, I can do that as well. Let's go back here to that combo. Now, if I click here on Edit Metrics, this is going to allow me to pick the metrics that you see here on the top of the screen. So I can say, hey, maybe I want to show total deals. Maybe I want to edit that a little bit, right? What should be the source of that field? You can see here I have the ability to actually pick my field. And then I can also decide if I want to aggregate that and how I want to do that. Like, do I want to summarize that, maximize it, etc. So that's how you can utilize some of those metrics on top of that screen. And then, of course, I'm actually going to change this to open opportunities. Here we go, open item opportunities. And now you can see here on the bottom that I don't have that many columns. If I want to go ahead and start editing my columns, you saw this earlier as well, right? When I was doing this in a view, but you can do this here in my deal manager as well. I can start, right, to uncheck some of these items. I can add columns, basic columns, or smart columns. And smart columns was what we see on top there as well, right? Where we can say, hey, we can basically calculate some of those fields here as well. And then if I wanted to go ahead and filter, I can do that on here. I can move some of these fields, as you can see, around as well. I can edit in line. So if I wanted to go ahead and change that date, I can do that as well. We're going to go back down to December, so whatever, right? And then if you want to go ahead and drill into one of those records, look at that. It will open one of those panes directly here on the right-hand side of my screen. And now I can add activities, an appointment, email, or a phone call. Look at this. I can actually go ahead and start chatting, right? We saw this earlier, the chat that we had. So I can start my chat directly here from within the deal manager. And you can kind of see here, this is that chat window that I was talking about. And that's how we can access that directly from within here. And then I can even add a note here as well, or I can add a task directly from within here. And then you saw earlier, right, if I wanted to change any of my views, I can do that from here as well. Let's go and take a look at where you can turn this on. I believe this was in app settings, and here you can see that deal manager if you want to turn this on or off. So this is where you can enable or disable your preview. And then you can see there are some settings, right? You can actually go ahead and manage and make some changes to those charts over here as well, or you can turn them on or off directly from within here as well. So again, some features that you can take a look at today in your sandbox environment. All right, and then we have some improvements for customer service as well. So a lot of people don't know about this. I think this is a great feature where we're now going to be able to upload attachments directly to a knowledge base article in Dynamics 365. And then when we email that knowledge base article, or when we associate the knowledge base article to an item, let's say a work order or something like that, right? People are going to be able to access that attachment as well, which is great, obviously. And then we also have a new subject control. Not sure how many people are actually using the subject control because you couldn't really do a lot with it, and you had to click through all of these different hierarchies to get to the one that you wanted to get to. Well, with this new control, you don't have to do that anymore. You can just search through that lookup window, and that will actually then take you to the correct item in that subject control. So let's take a look. I'm going to go back here to my environments. I have Customer Service Hub up here already. And if anybody has any questions, guys, feel free to post them in the chat. I would be happy to answer any of your questions as we're going through these things, right? Or your feedback. I would love to hear what you guys are thinking about some of these features that I'm showing you guys. So I'm going to go back down. You can see here are my knowledge articles, right? So what we can do here is we can just, let me see here if I can, HVAC is not working. This is one of my articles I have in here. And what you'll see here is I actually have right here a document here. So what I can do here is I can attach one or more files directly here to this article in Dynamics 365 for customer service. And once you have an article actually, or I should say, once you have an attachment associated with an article, then you can hit some of these buttons. You can see those, right? I can select them, I can sort them, as you can see, but I can also add additional files as well. And then to kind of show you what this looks like in the application, I'm actually going to open a case here for Coho Winery. And let me see if it's going to show me. I'm going to my case form 2 here, and I'm going to try to find my case here while this is loading. I believe it is this guy. I hope it's this guy. And what I want to do is I'm going to email this content. And let's give it a second while this drops it here in my email. And look at that. Here is that attachment, right? It just drops it right into that email. I don't have to go back myself and add that attachment there. I'm going to be able to email that directly because it is attached in that knowledge article. And you'll see the same thing if you're actually using this for field service, right? Where you can have that knowledge article be associated with that work order. It works similar, right? You're going to give people access to that attachment so they can take a look at that as well. And that's going to be very helpful because now you don't have to recreate some of these things that you might have in a PDF or a Word document, right? You can just attach that directly on that knowledge article, and then people will be able to access that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get out of here. And then we have, I wanted to see, I might not have this enabled. No, I don't see it on here, but let's see if I have it on my other case. Business subcategory. I don't think I have it on here. So what the section is that I just talked about, that subject control, is really exactly that. You're going to go and edit that subject field. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add this new control to it. Again, this is also something that I wrote an article about. So definitely check that out as well if you want to get some more details on that. And then we have field service. So with the field service mobile app now, previously we did not have the ability to control any of the fields in the booking calendar control, right? And that's really what the field technician sees, right? When they open their mobile app, they would only see a limited amount of fields, and we weren't able to do anything with them, right? If we wanted to add our own fields or custom fields or different fields, we couldn't do that. But guess what? We can do that. We can do that now. We can change that now. So there might be some folks out there that are not aware of that. That's also why I wanted to bring this up as well. So we can actually add 3 additional fields. That's kind of the maximum that we can add. But we can also add field labels, right? Previously, we didn't have those field labels. We just saw the data and that was kind of it. But now if you wanted to add field labels to those fields, you can do that as well. And then I also wanted to talk about the new Field Service Windows app, which is currently also in preview. And I believe this is coming out shortly, but what I did want to talk about is kind of like what you need to have, the requirements in order to run this right on your device. Obviously, you need to have Windows 10 or above. You need at least 64 gigs of storage on your device that you're using. And then you need 3 gigs of RAM in order to run this. Now, there are some limitations there as well. So, for example, currently today, again, it's still in preview, right? It's not really receiving those push notifications that you can get on the mobile application, right? So that doesn't work just yet. I'm sure Microsoft is working on that to fix that. And then we also have some limited personal options in this particular app. Like if you go to the mobile app, there is a ton of options that you can set, but it is a little limited here in the Field Service Windows app today. I'm going to go back here to Dynamics 365 and I'm going to show you guys that configuration that I was just talking about. So I'm going to pull up my solution file here. So where can we do that configuration? Well, obviously, or maybe not so obvious, that's actually going to be on the bookable resource booking table. And what you would do is you would click on that table, right? And that would just open this bookable resource booking, this generic tab. You would go to controls, and then you will click here on that booking control, because that's what we're talking about. And previously, we only had this section, right? Start date, description, end date, duration, and that was it. And we couldn't make any changes really to that. Yeah, we could select a different start date, but what's that going to do, right? Start date is start date, but we couldn't change that. So today, let me actually zoom in a little bit. Today, you can actually change that, right? Here are 1, 2, and 3 custom fields that we can now select. You can kind of see here that what you would need to do is first you would have the table name. So that's MSDYN _ work order and then dot, and then you would put the system name in there. If you're actually putting in a field that belongs to this bookable resource booking, I believe you just put in that name of that field because you're already in that table, right? So you don't have to point to that. And then the labels, here are our labels, right? So you can configure that over here. You can kind of see if I click on that, it kind of tells me what I need to do, right? So these are some of the field types that are compatible, the single line of text, and then the label for the custom fields, right? Label, value. And if it's, obviously if it's empty, you're not gonna display that label. So let me see if I can show you that real quick. Yeah, my field service mobile or field service for Windows, unfortunately, did not load. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up field service here. And now I'm going to share my screen with you guys. There we go. So once you have that configured, this is what that looks like, right? I have here the name of the work order, which is the work order number, right? So I just added that one field, and now you can see that directly here on my mobile app. Like I said, you were able to see that here as well. You're gonna have a max of 3, plus what's already on there, and that is it. Now, in regards to the field service mobile app, I'm going to minimize this. It actually doesn't look very different from if you go here to the field service mobile app. So I'm just going to give this a second while it loads, right? So it looks very similar to this, right? You get a bigger screen, you have more screen real estate. You're going to be able to see that your bookings will not look like this. Your bookings will look like this. But again, you're going to have a lot more screen real estate here, which is very nice, right? Plus the fact that we can now actually utilize Windows machines, right? So if your organization uses field service and they're using these surfaces for the technicians, then guess what? This is going to be a great tool for you guys to use. All right, and then this one, I'm super excited about this one. This is currently also in preview, but it's going to be going GA pretty soon now. I believe it was April, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's coming out soon. So what this is, make sure that you don't mistake these guys with the mobile notifications, right? With the push notifications, I should almost say. This is different. These are really, I'm going to go ahead and click here, different from the push notifications, right? This is really notifications for those model-driven apps. So somebody is using their browser to access the application, something happens, and they get that push notification coming up. Again, I would test this in a sandbox. And lastly, I wanted to show you guys what this looks like, right? You can see here the list of those notifications, and you can see this little bell here, and that is what is going to show that there are new notifications available. And you're also going to get that little pop-up there as well, showing you that notification. All right, again, I wanted to thank DynamicsCon so much for having me again this year for me to present on this topic. And hopefully you guys enjoyed my session. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. I would be happy to answer any of your questions. Or like I said earlier, just tell me how you guys feel about some of these features that I shared with you guys today. Again, thanks so much, everybody. And until next time. For watching my session on all the things that you might be missing, some new, some not so new. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I know when I was talking about the deal manager, there was actually a question in regards to if you make changes to those metrics in a deal manager, is this going to push out to all users? Actually, no, that's just going to be in the deal manager that you're working on. So this is not a change. Think of this as almost like a personal view, right? Where you're making some adjustments and then it's just going to be for you. So the other thing that I wanted to mention real quick, I was super excited about the in-app model-driven app, I should say, notifications. I wanted to share with you guys that there was actually a tool in the XRM toolbox that you can now use to create these notifications, because you can use Power Automate Flow, right, to create those notifications if whatever that trigger might be, if a new phone call is created, yada, yada, all that kind of stuff. But it's now so much easier by using that tool to create those notifications. You can bring some images in there as well. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. What tool? XRM toolbox. You can't really miss it. I'm actually opening it on my screen real quick to see, Yasmin, what the name of the tool is, because I don't know from the top of my head. So let me close this and see. It is called the in-app notification builder. So definitely check that out. It's so much easier to utilize that tool while you're setting up some of these notifications. For the MDA notification, do we have to use Power Automate to support those? Yeah, Lynn, you can use Power Automate for that. I have not tried this yet with a workflow, so I don't know if it's available there or not. You're saying you're concerned about consumption. Are you talking about a lot of notifications being sent? Or I do want to point out that when you're creating a notification, it's actually a record in that notification table, but you can also select how long that notification should stay in that table. So you can remove it after a certain period of time as well. In-app notification builder. Yes, Paul, you're absolutely right. Definitely try that out. I felt it made it so much easier for me to create those notifications, because once you have your setup, you can just basically download almost that code or that JSON that you need when you're creating that notification. I'm seeing if there's any more questions here. Yes, Heidi, thank you for mentioning that. You guys, I'm sure you guys have heard that we are doing a DynamicsCon live in September in Texas. I'm planning to be there as well, so I hope to see you guys there as well. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about the new features that are coming to Dynamics 365 in this release wave, 2022, wave 1, definitely check out my website at d365goddess.com. I've written several articles about that. I also have some videos on there as well. So you can kind of see some of the stuff that's coming there as well. Even, like I said, even though some of the stuff that we discussed was not necessarily all about the new features. Let me see here. So another article that I'm going to be publishing soon is about the deal manager. You guys saw that side pane that we had right on the screen. You can actually edit that as well. So I'm going to write an article on how to do that and what you can edit. So unfortunately, you can't edit everything, but I will definitely talk about that as well. And I have a video for that as well. Let me see if there's any questions here. Yes, Asif, I'm also looking forward to DynamicsCon Live. I can't wait for the in-person event again, right? For us to be able to network and actually talk to each other face to face again. So I just wanted to say thank you again to everybody at DynamicsCon, Heidi and Molly and everybody else that I worked with. Thank you guys so much for having us. I feel this is always a great event, and I feel blessed that I can actually participate in this event. So if you guys have any additional questions or want to talk to me, you can reach me at Twitter at d365goddess.com, or you can visit my website there as well, or connect with me on the LinkedIn. I would be happy to connect with you guys. But thanks again so much for watching, and thank you, DynamicsCon, for yet another awesome event.